Welcome to UpWell The Podcast. I'm Sarah, and this is my beautiful co-host, Katie. As fellow female entrepreneurs turned friends and now business partners, we are so happy you're here.
With every episode, it is our sole purpose to share authentic conversations to inspire your personal level up. Take our curiosity, add your best intentions, and flow with us in the UpWell.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of UpWell The Podcast. I'm Sarah, this is my girl Katie, and we are so glad that you're here.
We have another special guest today. He is the founder and owner of Kinetic Potential Physical Therapy in Southern California. He holds a slew of certifications from functional movement to kettlebells, which are my favorite. I love kettlebells, to medical golf screening, which I'm kind of interested to know what that's going to be about. He believes movement is medicine. He is the father, a husband, a marathoner, lifter of heavy things. He is the running memes extraordinaire, Dr. Mike Scott.
That was a very kind intro. Hello, everybody.
Well, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you here.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, this is my first podcast, so I'm really excited.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Well, welcome.
I'll be listening to. It's funny because I'll be in my car and I'm in Southern California. I'm in LA, so I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. I'm like, I think I'd be okay as a podcast guest. Like, I think I would do all right. So
well, this is your trial by fire.
Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, this is great. So, you know, a little bit about myself. I'm here in LA, but I did grow up back east from New Hampshire, and I went to Northeastern University for both undergrad and graduate work. And I was there for like a year or two, like right on the cusp, and then moved out to LA and haven't looked back since. And it's been quite a journey. But that's like,
awesome.
There's so much that has happened in between then and now, but here we are.
Yeah, that's really, I have kind of followed you for a long time, and now that I'm a fellow marathoner,
yes,
now
sir,
I'm like
congratulations,
addicted
by the
to
way.
your
That's
memes.
huge.
So, but that's not what we're here to talk about, is the reels that you make. But so tell us just a little bit more. I know that you said you started on the East Coast and that's where you grew up, but tell us a little bit more just about what you do in LA now, your personal practice, and some of your background and experience.
Sure. So I own a very small sole practitioner physical therapy clinic, and I'm coming up on 10 years in another month or so. And it started off working primarily with just golfers, actually. And it has transitioned through word of mouth to friends and family, and has turned basically back into general orthopedics and sports medicine. My patient population skews towards the older side, which I think is just a function of where I work. I would say that my average age of my patients is probably about 65. And they run the gamut of runners and golfers and, you know, moms and grandmas and everybody who just wants to kind of get back to daily activity. My personal passion lies within weightlifting, running, and golfing. And, you know, it's not, you know, I don't dictate who comes through the door, but for the most part, being in Southern California, everybody's active in one way or another. So just having a good understanding of, you know, tennis and cycling and things like that also really, really helps. And, you know, you look at my social media page, you'd be like, oh my God, this guy only runs, but that's not just like all I do. I just think it's the easiest thing to make fun of with me. And so I go with it. And a lot of my friends are runners, and it was just like a ridiculous crew of people who run. So it's like just easy picking.
That's awesome. How did you get into physical therapy? Was it something that you wanted to do for a long time? Did you suffer, you know, sports injuries when you were younger? Kind of walk us through what made you, you know, decide to do that as a profession.
Oh, man, it was like when you go to college, everybody's like, what's your major and stuff like that. Like that's just like the common stuff at parties or whatever. But amongst like the PT crowd, it was like, so what was your injury? And
Yes.
and it was like, for me, it was my ankles, actually, ironically, considering you have but Sarah, you had the ankle sprain, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The week before the marathon, I rolled my ankle, and luckily I don't think I did sprain it or do anything. And oh my gosh, that could have been bad.
It could have been bad, but
I'm the knucklehead actually that I sprain my ankle all the time. Literally, I was standing.
Like,
gnats.
you never have like just one, right?
At me.
Yeah.
Gnats came at me. I was swatting them away, and I literally rolled my ankle.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some good ankle rolling stories, but yeah. So I played a ton of basketball and volleyball growing up, and just as a function of playing outside, people's driveways coming down on the asphalt kind of strange, and people's feet, always rolling my ankle. And I ended up in a physical therapy clinic in a small town in New Hampshire where I grew up. And I really enjoyed the interaction of like my therapist with myself and some of the other patients who were there. Like I said, it was just like Grandma Sally, myself, and some college age kids running around. And it's like, whoa, she can take me from like this really, really depressed, sad state where I'm hurt and I can't play my sports that I love so much, and within like 8 to 16 weeks get me back to what I want to do. And I combine that with the fact that I always loved science and did really well, and that always helps. And I kind of did some internships and just hung out at the clinic, and it just grew from there. So I was like 16 and I was like, I'm going to be a physical therapist, and I haven't wavered ever since.
That's really awesome. And I feel like that is super aligned kind of with Katie's story. She's a massage therapist, and, just seeing herself and other people suffer with injuries probably that kind of resonates, I would think.
Yeah, I my undergrad degree is actually in something different, but one of my minors was in ergonomics, so I always designed spaces for the human body. And so then when the housing market crashed and I wasn't designing houses anymore, I decided to kind of flip the script on that because I loved that aspect of it. So now it's like I teach people how to use their body in space. So it's like I know both sides of it. So it's kind of a multifaceted, having that I can use my undergrad degree in what I do.
Yeah. And I'm just so fascinated by the human body. Like, I just love learning about how it's all connected and its movements. And, so I could listen to you guys talk about it. I could just like sit there and listen all day because it's so interesting to me. And I feel like a lot of people don't really think about it like that. They don't think about the kinetic chain. They don't think about how everything is always working together. So that kind of leads me to my next question is, just from your perspective, what do you feel like people struggle with the most? I know you see, a certain demographic, but where do you think, that chronic injury or that chronic pain is kind of stemming from for a lot of people?
I saw the list of questions ahead of time that you sent, and I was like, man, how deep do I want to get? And that's kind of when I said I could probably talk about this stuff for a long time. Like, in reality, like, we are living within our, like you said, Katie, we're within our environments, and that goes like so much broader than just where we work and where we live. And I think that like the real answer to why we're struggling a lot with people having chronic pain actually is corporate greed. This probably wasn't the answer that you were thinking, but I think that has kind of,
I don't like it.
It dictates the environments that we live in. But that we'll go there because I think people can actually modify that. I don't think we have as much control over like just the societal stuff that is, I think, just a bigger issue. But the environments that we live in, things are very easy. I was listening to your episode where you had the dietitian on, and you guys talked a little bit about like everything is just like in the palm of your hand, and that's like so true. We are meant to move. We are meant to use our bodies. And it seems as if like the convenience of everyday life it's good. Like it's great. Like it is allowing us to do this podcast, but on the same hand, like it's allowing you to get your groceries delivered to your door. And there's a convenience factor, and that plays into time. But we don't even, like, people struggle to get, the 10,000 steps, which is a totally arbitrary number, by the way. But we just struggle to get activity in our life and use our joints and use our muscles. It's like, you don't realize until you're working with people who are 65, 70, 75 years old, and they're being told to move your bodies more. So because arthritis likes that. Well, if you had moved it along the way, you wouldn't even be having the symptoms of that. Like if you had just gone to the grocery store, or if you had just, played with your kids more, that kind of stuff has like such a big impact. And the people I see, the first thing I tell them is, okay, I'm not even going to give you any specific exercises. I just want you to get more activity. And people, they're like, but how? They want to be told. And I'm like, I don't know. What do you have time for? Like, what can you possibly do? Can you go down to the gym that's in your building and ride the bike for 5 more minutes? Or can you just stretch? And people just, they can't, because they don't have time, because they have to get to work, or they have all these other responsibilities because they have to make money, or whatever it is. And people just don't have like the activity built into their life.
Yeah.
And there's only so much, like, okay, you can park farther away.
I was just going to say that.
It's not that far. Like, it's not that much. It's not enough.
Yeah.
Have you ever read the book, The Comfort Crisis?
No, but I know the gist of it. It's not like, comfort is good. I'm sure there's like certain aspects of that book where they talk about like how comfort and things that like create convenience are beneficial for us. However, there's this like paradox where it's physically killing us.
Yeah. Like there's probably fewer people dying of starvation because they can't hunt and gather, because they didn't catch their dinner. But again,
but at the same
now
time,
we're
like
so sedentary that's killing us.
The physical side of that is like, we are just not using our bodies as they are intended. And I forget what the book was, but it's basically like there's a mismatch between the way we live our lives and the way we're intended to move our bodies. And I know that like there's like a lot of people think of that in relationship to like the way we eat, like all these chemicals and like things that like people are putting into their foods and that we're consuming. Like, if you think about the same thing with movement, we're not getting that. We're not getting the amount of movement that we're intended to. And like, what do you think is going to happen? Our body's going to kind of yell at us. And that like pain signal can be really powerful, but a lot of people don't know how to interpret it. And that's where I come in. I'm like, listen, like, I know your back hurts. And I know you want exercises specifically for your back. And social media is like a double-edged sword here, because
definitely,
like, a thorough evaluation is needed just to make sure like no one's going to get hurt or whatnot. But at the same time, it's like, just go out and get any more activity than you're getting. And that is usually extremely helpful. And then you can start to, once someone like consistently can say, yeah, I got 30 minutes of exercise every day for the past 4 weeks, then you can be like, yeah, okay, here are some specific exercises or stretches beyond what you're already doing that might be helpful. But most people don't even need that. And like, lastly, I can, like I said, I can talk forever about this, but
no, please do.
The biggest example is if someone is in pain, and maybe Katie, you see this with your clients and patients, if someone is in pain and they go on vacation, they like 90% of the time are like, I didn't have any pain when I was on vacation. And because they've taken the physical stress, like of just like sitting in one place and not doing anything, because they're usually like walking around and like want to see stuff, like they've changed their lifestyle. And they've taken some like emotional or psychological stress out of their life. And then they come back and they're like, my pain returned. And you're like, yeah, I know, because you have to change your lifestyle. You did that for a week and now come back and so it's, how can you make your lifestyle resemble whatever you had when you were on vacation? And it's just like, it's so hard to do that, because it's, you wake up, you scramble out the door, you go to work, you go to your family responsibilities, you come home, you cook dinner, you hopefully can get your kids to bed, and then you have like 30 minutes and you're like, yeah, all I want to do is watch TV. I don't want to go for a walk. I want to just like zone out. And that's like we talk about the standard American diet. That's the standard American activity.
That's the standard American lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle. Yeah, right. And food plays into it. And there's this really interesting graph that I saw a couple months ago, and it started to pop up here and there. And it's like the factors of pain. And a lot of people will come in and they're like, my neck hurts, treat my neck. And you're like, cool. That is probably what is the issue here. But there's 349 other known factors to be contributed to your pain. And yeah, you probably have something going on in your neck, but maybe the stress at home is making it even worse. So it's even registering. There's, a perfect example would be a couple of years ago, I had a patient who had and she's got a lot of things, but it's like knee pain and shoulder pain and like all this chronic pain. But she's doing really well. But she decided that she was going to sell her house and move. And I was like, oh, I know what's about to happen. You're having this big stressful life event, and your pain is just going to get worse. And sure enough, nothing physically changed, but emotionally and psychologically, something changed. And she ended up having like a significant flare up. And I was like, listen, I'm not the right therapist for you. You need psychotherapy for this, to help with that. And sure enough, that's what did it. It wasn't me. So we have to take in all these other factors too, beyond movement and lifestyle. But for the most part, it's like we need to change something. We need to change the way we're doing things, because it's not, we're not going to get better sitting behind a car. We're not going to get better, staring at screens all day.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that a lot actually with your patients, the psycho and physical correspondence between it, to where like there might not necessarily be an actual event that caused the pain, where they're like, I don't know why my neck hurts, or I don't know why my shoulder hurts, but like, because in my profession, I do find that a lot, to where people will come in and it's kind of like they're holding emotion in a certain part of their body, and it's the mental release that they need, not necessarily the physical. Well, the mental release can lead to the physical release, but like do you find that correlation a lot?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like when people are like, oh, I hold my stress in my neck. You're like, well, cool. Then why are you here? Because you need to get rid of your stress, not not the physical stuff.
Exactly.
Well, I think a lot of it is going back to that convenience factor, where people want what they want right now. It's like that specificity you were talking about, that, if this hurts, I want pain relief and I want an answer right now. It's not like, like you had mentioned, getting a full screening, coming in for a full screening, because like you said, you can look up on TikTok knee pain and find a million exercises and things to do at home. But if it's stemming from your hip or an emotional trauma, people just, I think, don't have the patience to follow through that.
It's a quick fix. It's you order your dinner, you want it delivered in 30 minutes. Well, this might be more of like hey, let's throw it in the slow cooker for a while and see what happens. Absolutely. People, in not only like the emotional stress, which I think does play a big issue. Some people, commonly it's the neck or the low back or the buttock, like that kind of stuff is like, okay, you need to go to the appropriate therapist. And I understand you hurt, and I'm the therapist that deals with pain, but your hurt is probably being caused by something else. But there's a lot of, on the other end of the spectrum, there's the repetitive use people who do things a certain way so many times, like marathoners. It's like the total other end, the people who do a lot.
Crazy people.
They will hold like it's like a physical stress. I know when I run, I don't move my right arm as much as I move my left arm, and therefore my right neck hurts. And it's like, okay, until I address that, that's gonna change. But that's also, why I'm here is that's to change those physical stresses. But also, like triaging people in ER, I get to spend a ton of time with people, so I can be like, you know what, I'm going to do the physical assessment. We'll find out if there's any like physical things that definitely can be addressed. But a lot of times it's like, okay, I'm only going to be a small part of this, and nothing's going to change until something changes. The saying, like, nothing changes if nothing changes. Mm-hmm. I say that all day, every day. I say that to the same people all day, every day. And they come in week after week, and I'm like, did you do your exercises? Yes. Okay. You did your exercises that we determined are good for you. Did you change anything else? Were you able to, get more sleep? Like, the amount of sleep that people get is unbelievable. Like, you got 5 hours. That's great. Like, you missed your mark by 3. And you're like, you could be doing every exercise in the world. You could change, all your activity. You could change your environments, but then you decide to not sleep. And that could be a huge, driver, lever, as they call it. And, it's like picking those things out. Fortunately, as a physical therapist, I get the time to try to like do that with people. But not every healthcare practitioner is that fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's actually something we've talked about with other guests, just the lack of time, not just like you said, for patients to make the lifestyle changes that are recommended to them, but also the healthcare professionals, not being able to truly address the root of what's happening, or even explain to someone what the next step is or what they need to do actually to change it.
Right. I think you had mentioned in the episode I was listening to, every ill has a pill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's because it's quick, and that doctor only has 10 minutes with you. And that doctor, believe me, would love to spend an hour 2 to 3 times a week, which is like what I get with my patients. Because I do take some insurances, but I don't take all of them. I take very specific ones. And so I just think that better care can be provided by, like, could I make more money taking every insurance? Probably. But I don't want that. I want to provide really good care and make a difference. And to get those hours every single week, that's where change occurs. And I know that doctors want that. They can't, because they literally have to keep the lights on. And so they rush in, they listen to your symptoms. Okay, we're going to take care of your symptoms, and they rush out. And, physical therapists hopefully get a little bit more time, 15 minutes 2 to 3 times a week is more than, once every 6 months. But you can start to affect change, I think, a little bit more that way, the more time we're able to spend with someone. So.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's just such a systemic thing, and it's probably something that will come up in all of our episodes in the coming future. So it's exciting. It's exciting though to get to share your thoughts on that, especially for people that are in it. You live it and you see the changes that potentially could be made to improve the entire system. So it's fun to, get to share that and get more people aware of kind of what's happening on the other side. So
yeah, once again, it goes back to my answer of corporate greed being the problem. But
I know we'll do a whole episode on that.
Yeah,
we'll have you back for that, because that's interesting.
Yeah, sure,
I would like to dive into that. We might get shadow banned for it, but
for sure. Yeah, that's all right. It'll be worth it.
So I want to ask you before we go, kind of as last thoughts, but from what you see most frequently in your personal practice, what are some actionable, tangible things that you could recommend? Anybody that's listening to this, some easy things that they could incorporate, whether it's on the sleep side, the activity side, what are some ways that they could potentially avoid chronic pain, or, avoid re-injury, things like that, for people that either are completely sedentary now, and maybe we have a lot of listeners that are more active too. So give us a couple things in that range that people could be more aware of.
Sure. I will start off with the number one predictor of a future injury is previous injury. So if you're hurt, do something about it. Like, it'll feel better on its own, like almost regardless of what it is. Like, that's just what the data tells us. But if you don't do anything about it, it's just likely to happen. It's way more likely to happen again, as Katie, we know from our ankle sprains, right? Like,
I like to injure myself.
And it's probably all
spot.
Previous stuff. I'm going through it myself. Like, I strained my calf a couple weeks ago. I was like, okay, I'm feeling good. Like, I know better, but I'm like, I feel good. I'm going to ramp up my mileage way too fast. And guess what? Earlier this week, I strained my calf again. So it's just like, it's fine. I know a guy. So it's one of those things where, like, if you've had a previous injury because you're active, like, just don't ignore it. Yes, it will go away on its own, but be like, okay, why did that happen? Go find someone who can maybe tell you, hey, this is why, mechanically, like, it happened. There's this biopsychosocial model, like, biologically, like, what am I doing with my shoulder that is causing this? And then, you can address the psycho and the social stuff are outside of PT's realm, but taking care of those previous injuries by doing something, whether it's maintenance or rehab, or just, like, we brush our teeth every day, like doing daily exercises that might keep those joints healthy. For whatever reason they hurt in the past, like, you work with someone and figure that out. I would say that I already talked a little bit about sleep. Sleep has been shown to be significantly important to reducing the likelihood of any injury within an athletic population. It's way, way, way more effective than any stretching, any exercise, any nutrition, anything. Sleep. And so prioritizing that, I'm not a big like leave the screen in the other room, put your blue blocking lights on or whatever. Just like try to get into bed longer and fall asleep. Like let's go with the low hanging fruit before we start diving into like all the stuff that can maybe make like a minor difference. Like just go for the big stuff. Like get your 7 to 8 hours. Some people can get by on 6 for a little while, but the data just says like if you're at 5 or 6 hours on average, you're not gonna do really well with injuries specifically. And we see that in like high school and college kids. And then for someone who's trying to just become active, like I do like stacking habits where you're like, okay, you're brushing your teeth, so do your exercises. It's like, it's good for that. But I really do think that people need to carve out time for themselves. And it just gets down to like, if you don't prioritize it, like you're not going to do it. And if you're not carving out time in your schedule, you're not prioritizing. You're like, oh, I'll get to it. No, you won't. I'm the same 100%. Way. Like there's a reason I work out at 5 a.m. I literally had changed my mindset and I said, okay, I'm going to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm going to get to work. I'm going to work out from 5 to 6 or 6:30, whatever it is, because that's the only time I have. And if I wanted to prioritize exercise and being healthful in that way, like that's just what I had to do. And yes, I go to bed really early, but that's also prioritizing my health and my sleep and my family, because if I'm not getting my sleep or if I'm not healthy in the long run, like, you know, we're not doing well. I'm the sole provider for the family. So I need to make sure like I'm one mentally, you know, capable, because if I don't work out, I'm a crabby guy. But also like I'm getting my sleep, and for the long term, I'm doing things that establish good habits. Then it, you know, gets into my kids see me working out and exercising, and that's a benefit for them too. But it doesn't need to be complicated. Like if you're in a position where you're in pain, but you want to start working out, just start stretching. Just start, you know, with walking if it's possible. If you can't walk, ride a bike. If you can't ride a bike, maybe get in a pool. There's like a bunch of regressions or lateralizations where, you know, there's always something. There's something you can do. If your legs hurt, move your arms more. You know, they make arm bikes. There's no reason beyond prioritization to not have fitness in your life if that's something you want to do. And so, you know, there's tons of resources. Like YouTube is crazy. YouTube is wild. Like you can do so much with just that. Right. Just with Google. Like there's some really bad information out there, but there's also really, really good information out there too. Beyond like, this is the one exercise that will fix your elbow pain or whatever. Like that stuff is just garbage, and just clickbait. But it's just trying to get your attention. But it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, because the more you prioritize it, that's like, because so many people are like, well, I don't have the motivation. Well, you don't have the motivation. That's right. But if you prioritize it, the motivation will come with the prioritization of the, you know, the movement. So, you know, he left us. Oh no. Oh, we lost him.
Well, maybe he'll come back. I hope so, because this conversation was intriguing.
It was going good. I think he hit the wrong button and he left us. Oh, no.
Maybe somebody tried to call him. That's okay. We'll fill a little space because hopefully he comes back.
Yeah, if he pops back on. If not, we'll, you know.
Yeah,
so we'll just wrap up. Motivation will come with prioritizing what it is that you want in your life. So it's just a matter of, this is going to suck. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yep.
I'm going to go. Like I take Tina for a walk almost every morning. And there's some mornings I don't want to get out of bed.
Yep.
I don't want to do it, but I'm like, get out of bed, go. And then as I'm doing the walk, I'm like, man, this is so great. I'm so glad I got out of bed and I got to watch the, you know, the sunrise with everything. So he is back.
I'm back. I have no idea what just happened. I just was like, we're done. You were talking about,
and he's gone.
and that's it. 30 minutes.
Interview
hard.
over.
You were talking about prioritization.
Yes, I was basically just saying, prioritization. You'll gain the motivation by doing it. Like you're not going to want to get up and go. Like I was just saying, I take my dog for a walk every morning. There's some mornings I don't want to get out of bed and take my dog for a walk. I'm comfy, I'm cozy, but I'm like, no, I got to get my ass out of bed. I'm going to go. I'm going to take her for the walk, and then 5 minutes into the walk, I'm like, look at the sunrise.
Yeah.
This feels great.
Right.
Fresh air.
Yep. It's always a matter of action first, motivation follows.
Yeah.
It's never, I think people intrinsically, they're just waiting for the motivation. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach. And so I think what I hear most from people is that they're waiting for the right time or waiting for the perfect case scenario when they have, extra hours or less responsibilities or whatever it is. They're just like waiting around for this unicorn time.
I'm literally about to say the unicorn.
It's just not, it's never really perfect. So I love the idea of just taking a little bit of action.
I will say though that most people need motivation is like the match.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then like you find like, I don't care. Like I'm not a big David Goggins fan, but like he might be the guy that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go for it, and he gets you to go for that first walk.
Definitely.
And it's like cool. Like you might realize like he's wild, like, but whatever. He got you going. He got you going, and then you build up that discipline of like every day, whatever you're listening to him, you're listening to some other motivational thing, whatever it is. Like you build up that motivation, but then that turns into like, okay, I don't need this. And you built that discipline in. So I think initially that might be like motivation is, trying to be replaced by discipline. Like I understand.
For sure.
But you need something like a
catalyst of sorts.
Exactly. You need that, but that shouldn't be, you shouldn't rely on it. You shouldn't rely, like a year later, you shouldn't be like, I need motivation to get up. The motivation should be the fact that like you feel really good or, this is good for your health because you've learned a little bit about it. Not like, oh, I need to listen to whatever motivational speech from David Goggins for an hour.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's almost like the motivation changes, right? Instead of it being like an exterior inspiration of some sort, it's like, you're self-motivated at that point.
Yes, it's you internalized it, and I think that once you make that switch from external to internal, I think you're there. I think like you just need to find something that you enjoy doing, and at that point you're hooked. No, exactly, and like you'll realize like I don't know, while I'm hurt, I have my spin bike like right here off to the side, but like I'm trying to do that. I hate it. I'm not like motivated, but I know like internally it's going to keep my fitness levels higher for when I do return to running. So I'm like, okay, like I need to just get on it. And a half hour into it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
It's like, this is good.
It's like when there's a will, there's a way. And then you feel okay when you're halfway through.
Yeah, of course. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This is such a good conversation. I think we could probably talk for a couple more hours. I have more questions.
And I'm sorry if I went off topic and like down some weird tangents, but this is great.
Too, so
it was perfect. So we just want to know, where can people find you, all of our listeners? Where can they locate your information?
The best place is actually Instagram. Yeah, Kinetic Potential PT is my handle. I used to blog a lot. I don't blog anymore. Just the kids, man. The kids. It takes so much time. Yeah, and I mean, if you want to find more information about my practice, you can go to kineticpotentialpt.com. But for the most part, if you want, I'm trying to make people laugh and just bring some joy. Like I just try not to take myself too seriously. But yeah, Instagram's probably the place for that, and you'll see some running info on there too that maybe motivates you to get going. Although
it is pretty motivational.
You're like, why do people just like talk about poop and barfing all the time with running? And you're like, you don't realize until you do it enough where that's like a serious
true
like thing.
Not gonna happen. I'm not running a marathon.
Yeah, no.
He's not a runner.
I don't recommend like everybody. I always swore I would never run a marathon, and then my first marathon story is ridiculous, but I don't know how much time you have.
Go ahead, share it.
All right, real quick. So my daughter was 5 months old. And like I said, for years, I was like, I'm not going to run a marathon. I went to school in Boston. So like there's a huge running culture in Boston, but I said, I'm not going to run one. I won't run one. And then I kind of got talked back into like running while COVID was happening by my wife. And one day I was like, I wonder how far I can run. And so as you know,
What?
real smart. So I went to bed at like 12. I was up like 3 times throughout the night. I woke up at 5 to say, okay, I'm going to just go running. I'll be back before my wife wakes up. Because I didn't think I could run that far, honestly. And so I take literally a Ziploc bag full of gummy worms, 1 electrolyte tab, and 16 ounces of water. Because I'm like, at this point, I think I've run maybe 12 miles. I'd run a half marathon at this point, but like in this training block, like all my running I was doing, 12 miles was the max. And so I just went and I listened to, I think I was listening to like some crazy Joe Rogan podcast, and I was just about mushrooms or something. And so I ran, and like I looked at my watch. I was like, oh, I'm 13.1 miles in. I should probably go back. But at that point, I had no water and just gummy bears, or gummy worms. It was awful.
Yeah,
but
that's terrible.
I made it back, and then I had cramps for like 4 days straight, and it was awful. But that was my first marathon. It was just like my own little thing that I did.
That sounds like my first marathon, but I was running in a race, but I pretty much executed it the same way. It was terrible.
The gummy bears. Yeah.
I was on the ground. I hadn't eaten or drank for miles. I was cramped from my fingers to my toes. It was god awful. So I don't know why I chose to run another one.
No.
Right. Yeah. And then like, sure enough, I'm like, oh, I have a good friend he's my running coach now, but he was like, yeah, your time was like really good. You should go try to run Boston. And I was fortunate enough to get a charity bib for Boston, and that like just like sparked it. Like I was hooked at that point. I was like, okay, I guess my time is good. This guy's telling me it was good. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, but not recommended.
I was just going to say that medical disclaimer.
However, yeah, most people, I always said this when I worked in Boston, because I worked with a ton of runners when I was in Boston. It was, you'd be better off just running the marathon and not training, right? And I still hold true to that advice, because you are way more likely to get like injured on the process of training than like if you just want to run a marathon, go run a 6.5 hour marathon. Like you will hurt for a long time after that, but you probably won't be injured. But you'll injure yourself training. It's almost like guaranteed. It's a rite of passage.
That is true though. That's I've never gotten injured during a race. I've always gotten injured during the training. So that makes perfect sense.
Yep, exactly. So
all right,
it must be true.
That's what I'm doing for Chicago next year. I'm not going to train at all.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll be like, Mike Scott told me to do it.
Yep. Don't train. Just wake up, grab a handful of gummy worms, and get
Here we go.
Yeah. Are you doing Chicago next year again?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I told myself before it started that I would never do another one. And I was about 4 miles in, and I looked at my running partner and I was like, are we signing up next year or what?
Well, I am hopefully, like, for some reason the Abbott World majors seem appealing to me. And so Chicago will have to be crossed off at some point. So hopefully I'll see you out there maybe really next year. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, well, let us know. Katie won't be running, but she'll be there to cheer us on.
I'll cheer you on.
You can pass me in
enough gummy worms or gummy bears.
That's right. What is it? Italian beef? That's like the big thing out there, and some deep dish pizza.
Yes. Yep, deep dish pizza. Gotta have that.
Hot dog.
I'm lactose intolerant. I could never do it. So.
You could have the hot dog.
You could have the hot dog.
Yeah, I'll do the hot dog. That's fine. By the way, I couldn't come up with a meme in time that involved the Bears for the Chicago Marathon. I tried my hardest to wrap my brain around it, and I just couldn't come up with a good one. But I watched a lot of good SNL skits from the Bears era.
The Bears fans here appreciate not getting made fun of in another direction, so they appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll keep it to football then.
They're so bad.
They are.
They're so bad.
I mean, the fans or the Bears?
I'm a Packers fan, so both.
Got it. Okay. I'm a Patriots fan, like growing up in New England, so they're pretty bad these days too. So I can't complain. Like I had my run. So
but you guys at least had a long enough streak with your Tommy boy there to to make
I'm fine. They could lose
you can ride that wave.
We're fine. Yeah, I'm fine with they can go defeated for the next 40 years and I can't complain.
Exactly. Well, I was around when Tom Brady was playing, and
I can't wait to say that.
Back in my day.
I'll talk to my kids, my grandkids, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Goodness. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure. This was great.
Taking the time to, to chat with us today. So, but you've already shared all your information and we appreciate that as well. So we are going to sign off. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take care of the world around you guys. And we will see you next time. Thanks, Mike.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.